The Pinball Network is online. Launching
Pinball Innovators and Makers Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Pinball Podcast focused on the innovators and makers who are crafting homebrew, custom, and rethemed pinball machines, the technology that makes these personal projects possible, and the companies helping with these journeys. Custom pinballs are a deeply personal and technically challenging undertaking, requiring time, money, knowledge, and most importantly, the desire to make it happen. I'm Dan Rosenstein, your host. Join me, and let's go under the playfield and see what's needed to make a custom pinball possible. Hello, pinball innovators and makers. It's episode 10. Thank you for all the support, feedback, and listening. For this episode, we have a pinball maker with a non-traditional story to tell, Jeffrey Jones. Jeffrey, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell me and the listener how you got your start in pinball? What's your pinball origin story?
Hey, Dan. First, I want to say thanks for inviting me to do this. I graduated from high school in 1985, and honestly, I can say that I wasn't attracted to pinball. I was part of the problem for pinball declining. I grew up in the generation where video arcade was the newest, best thing. So I didn't really play pinball until about 12 years ago. My wife and I bought a home, and it had a large basement, and I wanted to put in my dream home theater. I said I wanted it to be commercial. Like, I wanted it to have a candy counter. I wanted it to have a popcorn machine. I wanted it to have a Coke machine. And my wife likes to make fun of me, but she goes, "Remember when you said, wouldn't it be fun to have a pinball machine?" So that's what started it all. My first pinball machine was a $6 million man I bought locally. I think I paid $400 for it. It worked mostly. The save-a-ball mech between the flippers didn't work. But we played it. And then I had problems. I had no experience. I'm a mechanical engineer, but no electrical experience, and decided I probably needed a new rectifier board. Had never soldered before. So bought a new rectifier board, put it in, didn't work, ended up giving up, called someone to come fix it for me. He came out, took my board with him, came back, got it going. We played that game for years. And then I started digging into the game. Then I started thinking, well, I should learn how to clean it up. I should learn how to put new rubber on it. I should fix that center pop-up, save-a-ball. So I got my feet wet doing that. It was the perfect machine to get started on. But I can remember being afraid to touch the circuit boards. I mean, I just was afraid I was going to break something. So after we bought that, we bought a Comet.
Well, actually, before you go to the Comet, if you don't mind. So the fact that you started the $6 million man, and that story is amazing. You basically just went down the rabbit hole very, very slowly, and just like as it needed to happen. The nice thing about that $6 million man is it's built right in that time frame as the whole pinball industry is moving from electromechanical to digital, and so you get, first of all, it's a fantastic game to play, but you and in addition to that, you get a play field that's kind of the best of what electromechanical had to offer by that point in terms of mechanisms and robustness. But you have digital circuit boards which are just coming to market. But on the other hand, the code, the capability of them, it's actually pretty nicely primitive, and I don't mean that in a negative way. So did you feel that you ended, like, knowing now what you know before you go on for the rest of your journey, do you feel, looking back, and that $6 million man was actually a good first purchase?
It was a great first purchase, but I wouldn't buy one again.
How come?
As I got more and more into the hobby, I wanted more and more. And I can remember right before I bought it, a neighbor of mine said, "Hey, there's a guy down the street who collects pinball machines." Oh, cool. So I knocked on his door, introduced myself, told him what I was doing. I didn't have the lingo, but I said, so I've seen some pinball machines have digital scoring, and I've seen some pinball machines have a reel that moves. I said, I don't know which kind to get. He said, well, those are called solid state and electromechanical. And what he said, and some may disagree, if you want to work on it all the time, get an electromechanical. Otherwise, buy a solid state. Gotcha. So I'm like, okay, great. I know nothing about pinball, so I'm getting a solid state. And that's when I found the $6 million man.
Got it. So but in terms of a first machine to kind of get your feet wet, would you say that's a good place to start, is around that?
It was a great place to start. It's not a real complicated machine. There aren't ramps. It's fairly simplified, and the boards are fairly simple. It was a great first machine. I don't regret buying it at all.
So then you take off to space. I think you were saying Comet before I interrupted you and moved you back. So let's continue down your journey.
And then we bought a Comet, the roller coaster theme, and the play field needed shopped. I ended up going a little bit further. I took care of it. I took most things off the play field. I cleaned it, put new rubber on it, brand new plastic set. New ramps weren't available at the time, so it didn't get new ramps. And then as far as the cabinet goes, it wasn't in too bad shape, but it did have some planking going on. So not knowing what to do, I got some black stain, and I filled in all the planking, and not taking the coin door off, not taking the rails off, and then I painted on a clear coat to seal it in. It looked pretty good. It's definitely not the right way of doing it. I wouldn't recommend anyone doing it that way now, but it was a good learning experience.
And sometimes those learning experiences are the way to go. I'd be lying if I didn't say that at least one of my machines didn't have black Sharpie on it to cover up a blemish, and it works. So you do what you got to do.
So we liked the Comet. It was our first introduction to ramps, and we bought an NBA Fast Break next, and we didn't really like it. And what that taught me was, I looked at the NBA Fast Break. I watched videos of the NBA Fast Break. It looked fun, but it taught me that there's more to pinball than just how something looks. A feel is a big part of it. So I sold it, and the guy I bought it from had 2 machines for sale. And I said, hey, is your other machine for sale? He goes, yeah. I said, I sold NBA Fast Break. I want to buy the other one. Didn't know anything about it. And it was called Elvira and the Party Monsters.
Here we go.
Now, Elvira and the Party Monsters someone had clear coated the playfield. Someone had put new plastics on it. The playfield was very, very good. It was missing one of the arches of the ramps, and I knew there was supposed to be a switch there. So I ended up figuring out how to fix that. But I thought, okay, I'm really enjoying this. I'm starting to get hooked. I'm not hooked yet, but I'm starting to. I'm like, I have a game with a clear-coated playfield, beautiful playfield, but the cabinet decals were wrinkling, they were faded. Okay, I'm going to learn how to restore a pinball cabinet. And I did. It turned out I was very happy with it, didn't really make any major mistakes. Ended up powder coating it a really bright green, which matched the green on the game. And I can remember going into a group, I think it was a Facebook group, and said, hey, what do you guys think about this? And I don't do this now, obviously, but I said, do you feel like this helped the value of the machine? And I immediately found out that that people can be fickle. And I had people saying, well, you decreased the value of that machine by half. You did this, you did that. So, so I'm like, oh, okay. So I ended up eventually trading that machine towards a newer Stern.
Do you still have the Comet at this point, or
I don't.
You don't. Okay.
I don't. The machine that I have in my lineup that's lasts the longest, and I bought it not too far from this time. I probably bought it close to 10 years ago. It was a game that a local guy was selling. He had other machines, and my wife went in and we tried it out. I said, "What do you think?" And she said, "I love it." Well, my wife is my pinball buddy. You know, I want her to be happy as long as myself. You know, so I said, "Do you want to buy it?" She goes, "Yeah, let's buy it. I think it's really fun. It's cute. It's got a quirky theme." And it was called Bad Cats. And again, I went back into a pinball group, you know, learning my ways and say, "Hey, I just bought this. What do you think?" "Oh, that game sucks. That game only has one ball. You should have spent your money on something else." I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, you know, I thought I had something that was fun here. I guess I'm wrong." Of course, you look at Bad Cats today, and everyone says just the opposite.
Such a great game.
Like, I wish I could find one. I wish, and I still have it. It's been in my lineup the longest, and it was one of my early full restorations. Not high-end restoration like I'm doing now, but it was a full restoration, and it still looks great. It still plays great, and we still love it.
So so keep walking through your journey. So you were talking, I think you were saying something about a Stern machine around that time.
Well, we traded it. I knew I wouldn't be able to sell Elvira and the Party Monsters for as much as someone offered to trade an AC/DC. What was it called? AC/DC
Lucy?
LED.
Oh, okay.
It was the LED version. It was like the Volt, what they call Volt Edition now. Traded for that because I knew if we didn't like that game, I could sell that game for a good price faster than I could sell and find the right buyer for the Elvira and the Party Monsters.
Yep.
And that's what happened. We played the game for a while. It didn't resonate, and we sold it. And I can't remember what we bought in its place. But so time goes on. I buy more machines. I'm learning how to fix them. I clean them up. I play them for a while. I sell them. I get something else, and I decide I want to tackle a high-end restoration. I want to see what it entails, what all I have to do, and can I do it? Now,
so Jeffrey, before you go on, can you highlight what the difference between a high-end restoration in your mind at this point, not as it is right now, but back when you went to go tackle this, what's the difference between a high-end restoration and what you've been doing up until this point?
My definition of a high-end restoration is every nut, bolt, screw, everything comes off. Every inch of the machine is polished, shined, replaced, fixed. There's nothing that's avoided. The play field is replaced with new. It's restored. It's clear coated. It gets new plastics. It gets new targets if available. The boards are serviced. Everything is gone through. It's been put back into as new or better condition than it was, back in the day.
Fantastic definition.
And I know people had different definitions on restorations, and I wish as a community we could come up with a better definition, because one person will say, "I restored this machine," and what they mean is I wiped it down and put some new rubber on it. And one person will have put $10,000 worth of parts and powder coating or chrome or whatever into a machine and say, "I restored this machine." Now, in my opinion, neither one of those is really accurate. I think a lot of people's definition of restored is back to factory-like. So when people like me restore, air quotes, a machine, and we put chrome on it, and we put a new playfield on it, and we maybe add a few mods or add LEDs, I wish we had a better word for that than restore.
Fair, totally fair. But for the purpose of this interview, we have a good definition, working definition of high-end restoration. So you decide that you want to go down this route. What happens?
Right. So I decide I do not want to attempt this on the Tales of the Arabian Nights or Indiana Jones. I want to find a fun but inexpensive game to try it. That way, if for some reason things go south, so I bought a police force. It was players quality. It worked. It had a few issues, but I went through it. Everything. I learned how to restore the play field. I replaced the inserts. I clear coated it with 2K automotive clear coat. I learned how to touch up the artwork. I've gotten better now, but that's not my expertise. But I went through everything, and I was really, really proud of it. And then, as most of my machines go, it didn't stand the test of time, and I ended up selling it and getting something else.
And the person you sold it to, did they appreciate the level of restoration work and effort that you put into it? Or was it they were looking for a police force? They were just looking for a pinball machine? Like how did their what they got and what they expected and what you did match or mismatch?
I don't remember a lot about the situation, but I do know that the guy who bought it was putting it on location at some kind of ski resort. So I think he was looking for something that had been totally gone through and was going to be dependable.
Yep. Okay.
And I actually have contacted him in years later and said, hey, I'm just kind of curious, how's it gone? And he's gone, had to adjust the switch or something minor, but other than that, it's been, and he still has it.
Jeffrey Jones delivers a quality restoration. So you sell the police force. By the way, but you had, just as an aside, you mentioned NBA Fast Break and Police Force, two of my absolute favorite machines, but that's not here nor there. So where do you go from here?
Okay, so where do we go from here? So I restore this machine. I'm happy with it. And now I'm getting the bug. Now I'm getting to the point where I am really enjoying having really nice machines in my lineup. So I start restoring other machines of mine. And I don't really have a list together, but
no worries.
But I restored a Whirlwind for us, my wife and I. I've restored a Tales of the Arabian Nights. I think I'm up to about 40 restorations I've done for myself or for other people. Because what happened was, after I had restored probably my third or fourth game for myself, I was really proud of it. And I would go on a Facebook group and say, hey, check this out. And then I had a buddy of mine say, hey, I've got this getaway that's a piece of junk. He goes, well, actually, he still tells me to this day, I can't believe you sold that beautiful police force, but I want this getaway to look like your police force did. So I said, fine. He's a neighbor of mine too, a good friend. So I said, great. I said, this is an opportunity for us to work together. Let's do this restoration together. So we tear it apart, and we are sanding it down, and we're getting all the cabinet ready. And then all of a sudden, the news is talking about this thing called COVID. So all of a sudden, we can't work together, or shouldn't work together. So we don't. And I am doing the whole restoration by myself.
But at least you got time on your hands.
I had plenty of time on my hands. So, but he has this game to this day. He plays it almost every day. He loves it. He's just so proud to have it. And I'm glad he's proud to have it. It really turned out well. So, but then, as I had another friend say, hey, can you restore a game for me? I'm like, yeah, I guess so, And then, as I got more and more restoration under my belt, then I started having people who I didn't know contact me and say, hey, I've been seeing your work. You're doing some great work. Can you do one for me? Now, keep in mind, I work full time as an engineer for the Navy. I'm not part of the Navy. I'm a civilian, but I have a full-time job.
Right.
So this is a hobby. So
and you have a wife, and like you've got
and
friends.
I have kids. Exactly.
It's a hobby.
So, but yeah, I'm like, I can do that for you. You know, what do you want, and what can I do, and before I knew it, I had at least one game in my, and I have since then and to this day, I've had at least one machine in my workshop from a client. I'll just call them a client, and not necessarily a friend or a family member or someone who's contacted me. And like right now, I have a Terminator 2 and an Indiana Jones, Williams Indiana Jones in my workshop.
Perfect time to have an Indiana Jones in your workshop.
My wife and I bought an Indiana Jones for ourselves about 6 months ago. She was like, "Hey, our last name is Jones, and we live in Indiana. Don't you think we should have an Indiana Jones in our lineup?"
I believe you are the Indiana Jones then.
So we bought one. So we're up to, I'm doing restoration for people now. So I decide, look, I try to be humble. I have never felt like I know everything. I'm always learning about restorations. I'm always trying to better my processes or better how I do something. But I thought, I know quite a bit, so it might be fun to create a hobby name and start a Facebook page and just kind of keep people up to date with what I'm doing. I might have 50 people interested in watching that, So I started a hobby business name called PinBall ReBorn. And I started that in 2019. So about, what's that been? About 4 years ago. I never thought it would take off, but I have just under 1,000 followers now, which I know is peanuts compared to some people and their channels, but I'm very humbled that 1,000 people want to watch what I'm doing.
So on that, first of all, you absolutely you're such a humble dude. You deserve credit on this. Like the stuff you put up there, I've actually been following you for quite some time. I'm one of those, just about 1,000 people. The work you do is absolutely stellar. You've talked about it. There's pictures, and we'll post a link to the site as part of the show notes. And the fact that you did this as like kind of a hobby thing, the fact that you're at 1,000 for a niche of a market, like you're talking about people who care about collecting and restoration and the process of restoration, like that's a serious endeavor and a niche of a niche. And so you being at 1,000 people, like, look, this podcast, it doesn't get, hundreds of thousands of people. It's a niche part of a niche part of a hobby. And you should definitely be proud of the 1,000 you've got. It's pretty awesome. And I hope after this podcast, you'll get a couple more.
Maybe. Right. I'm having a little bit of a downtime right now, only because I haven't gotten the full deposit yet for the Indiana Jones, but as I get deposit my money, I've been ordering parts. So that one hasn't been started yet, except for parts. The T2, I sent the playfield out for restoration. I was on a list to get a new playfield in Germany, but they kept pushing the date back. And finally I called the owner and said, look, for about the same price, we can probably have this one restored and it'll look every bit as good. So he says, do it. So we had it restored. It's been clear coated, which I didn't do. The guy who did it did an excellent job. But it still needs to cure for one more month. So during the time that's curing, I don't have any other game I'm restoring, but I do have another game that we will talk about.
Yep. But before we get there, Jeffrey, one thing I want to ask, and I want to be respectful that I don't want you to divulge any information you're not comfortable, but there's a line of questioning I want to go through for the listener who might be interested in their own game restoration before we move on to the next thing. Do you feel that the economics of how much you charge as a hobby and what people are willing to pay for a restoration, and like are ultimately works out, or do you feel that like, and I'm asking this question in two ways, like if you had enough enough people asking you for restoration, would you want to do it, as a, as more of a thing beyond a hobby? That's question number one. And then question number two is, like, I've restored a Gottlieb magnetron as an example, and it's not, I would like to think of it as a high-end restoration. However, I did not do anything to the playfield other than one little touch up. The playfield looks used, but the rest of the machine, like, I went through every part, like you said, polished them, etc. So let's consider it a first tier high-end restoration. But I know I put 5 times more money into that machine than it'll ever be worth to anybody. And so the second part of the question is, for your customers, does it make sense to them from an economics perspective, or is it really an emotional attachment to the machine, which is completely fine? Like, I've done that with my machines as well.
Right. That's a tricky question, and I think, in my own personal opinion, there definitely has to be a personal attachment to the machine for someone to invest the money it costs. I mean, yeah. I'll spend, and I haven't recorded my time for a long time, but I probably spend 200 to 250 hours on a restoration.
Yeah.
I think the T2 may actually be the most expensive machine I've ever done as far as a restoration goes. I think it's currently.
You don't divulge it, because you've got a customer with that.
Okay,
like, yeah.
Okay. But it's very typical to spend $5,000 on parts.
Yeah.
And for an even higher restoration, twice that much is not uncommon.
So it really, it's not an economics thing. It really is a labor of love on your side. Although you deserve to be paid for your hobby work, and your time and your quality, but also for the person who's getting their machine restored. It really is an emotional attachment they want, and what they get is a like new or even better than new restoration. And
I'm not a car person, but it's similar to buying a piece of junk car. Say a 1960s Corvette, say.
Yeah.
You might be able to find a piece of junk, and I may be totally off on this, but you might be able to find a piece of junk for $5,000. Or you may be able to find the exact same car that's been on a rotisserie and completely gone through for $100,000. This is kind of the same thing. It's really has to have that emotional attachment, and it has to be a collector who really wants that in their collection, and they appreciate the craftsmanship and the time and the cost it took to get it to that point.
Yeah, your analogy is spot on. I mentioned in my last episode that, and the listener may remember that I have a 1981 DeLorean that I've been converting to an electric car, and it's been 5 or 6 years that I've been working on it, and that I'm keeping looking stock. So I'm not actually doing a restoration on it, but I'm just doing the drive system. And the amount I've spent there, I will never, ever, ever recover for what that car is gonna, is worth. All right. And then the other part of the question, Jeffrey, the first part is, if you had more, over time, more customers coming through, would you consider doing pinball restoration as, Pinball ReBorn, and growing that into a full-time business if the economics worked for you?
I don't see that ever happening for me. I am a tenured engineer for the Navy. I work for the DoD,
sure.
And that's my career. That's where my career is taking me, and that's my retirement blanket. And I don't think pinball, at least for me, would replace that. But after retirement, that might be I may give you a different answer in 5 years or 10 years.
So maybe it's Pinball ReBorn (parentheses after retirement).
Maybe.
All right. Well then, so with that retirement plan in mind, for Pinball ReBorn post-retirement (in parentheses), and you doing high-end restorations for yourself and others, where did you go next?
Let me back up just a little bit and explain a hobby I had before pinball. So before pinball, I was really do alternative movie posters, screen printed alternative movie posters. And that group of collectors is every bit as crazy as we pinball collectors are. I got so into this hobby that I started saying to myself, there needs to be a really cool poster for this Christmas, a Christmas vacation. Christmas is my favorite kind of poster to collect. But there weren't any. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go out and find an artist to draw one. And screen printing's expensive, so I would get a group of collectors together. We would pool our money. And this is all fan art, unlicensed fan art. We'd pool our money. We would pay the artist. We would pay the printer. I would buy tubes and paper and shipping labels. And when everything was all done, I would ship them all out. We'd have this ultra limited edition cool poster that no one else had. So when that started getting tiring, I started getting into pinball. So let's move to December of 2017. My wife sees an ad for a movie on television called The Greatest Showman. It's a musical. I do not like musicals. This is her thing. So she's like, go see it with me. I'm like, I really don't want to. So she goes and sees it, comes back almost in tears, saying how good it was. So a week or so later, she goes again, go with me. No thanks. It's a musical. It's gonna suck. She comes back again. You've got to go with me next time. Like, okay, I'll go. I almost, I'm not rude. I didn't say if it'll shut you up. That's kind of how I was feeling. So I go see The Greatest Showman with my wife in the theater, probably spring of 2018. I said, okay, I get it. I have honestly can say I have never liked the musical before, but this one struck a chord. This one, it just was done so well, and the music is so good. And my wife and I were so mad that Disney or Pixar movie won Best Song and The Greatest Showman didn't. But my wife's like, oh, you've got to find an artist to make a poster for The Greatest Showman. And there just happened to be an artist. His name was Alexei Kot, and he lives in Europe somewhere. And he had a really old style feel to his artwork. And I thought, this guy's the perfect artist, but that doesn't mean he'll do one. So I contacted him. He said, well, I've never seen the movie. Let me watch it and see. A week goes by, he contacts me and says, I'm in. So with all, I bet I've done 20 or 25 commissions with artists for different movies. Sometimes I have a really good idea for a concept. Sometimes I don't. With The Greatest Showman, the only thing I knew it had to have, I said, this needs to look like an old-fashioned circus poster.
Uh-huh.
That's really my only requirement. Other than that, go for it. And he, over many months, came up with this amazing artwork for The Greatest Showman. And I had it printed. I think we printed about 50 copies. So there aren't very many that exist. But it's wonderful. And one's hanging in my wife's sewing studio. She sees it every day. So as my pinball hobby is taking off and my poster hobby is starting to peter out, my wife starts saying, you need to do a retheme. I'm like, no way.
Your wife is quite the muse, I must say.
I'm like, no way. I said, doing a restoration is one thing. It's a lot of work. I said, a retheme, you can't imagine how much more work that has to imagine. I'm like, I just don't have time. I don't want to tackle that. And she did this for a couple of years. And then last October at Chicago Pinball Expo, the Fast Pinball people were there. Mm-hmm. And I had just finished our high-end restoration for our Whirlwind, our second Whirlwind. Someone heard about my first one and said, "Is it for sale?" I said, "No, my wife would kill me if I sold that." I said, "We'd have to have crazy money to sell that."
Here comes crazy money.
He offered me crazy money, and it left the house. After a year or so, my wife's like, "I want another Whirlwind." So I had to top that restoration somehow. So I did radicals again, which I love. But now Mirko is making mirrored radicals, and since I put chrome on that machine, chrome and mirroring is so perfect. So I feel like I went up my last one. But I just finished the Whirlwind restoration, and we go to, and we're enjoying ourselves, and we find ourselves at the Fast Pinball booth, and my wife's eyes are huge. And she's listening and she's talking and she's playing some of the games that I run on the system. And she's like, "Let's do it. Let's do it." I said, "We know nothing about coding." I said, "I have no doubt I can make a machine look beautiful." I said, "But I don't want a machine that looks beautiful and then you can't play it or it sucks." I don't know how to code.
And Jeffrey, let me interject here. You're talking about the Fast booth at Expo. I was there as well. You're talking about Aaron Davis and company's booth, and
Yes.
The way that they've got it is that, they've got folks there to talk about Fast Pinball, but they've got a bunch of machines. Some are production machines, some are in concept machines. They had a Fathom Revisited. They have all kinds of different machines showing off the capability of what Fast can do. And so There's no surprise to me at all that if you're sitting there talking and she's looking around, she's like, "Oh my God, there's an opportunity here."
So she's getting really excited. And I said, if we're going to do a retheme, I want to do at least a System 11, because I heard that PinSound was going to be coming out with a board for System 11. And I thought, okay, that solves the sound issue. We can put our own sounds in there. I said, we can keep the same rules. We can keep the same scoring as a System 11. There's just one thing we have to overcome, and that is the words that appear on the displays. Like, for instance, Whirlwind, it'll say, head for the cellar or something. So I thought, well, I can find someone to do that. I was wrong. I talked with some board experts, and they were saying they've looked into it, and that coding is so deep inside those machines that basically you can't change it. I'm like, well, darn. I don't really want to do a retheme of an early 80s machine that doesn't have words. In my opinion, that's not my cup of tea. And I had just finished this Whirlwind restoration. And I said, okay, let's do a retheme. What machine are we going to do? And my wife's like, well, which one do you think we should do? I'm like, you're going to not be happy with what I had to say, but I know I just finished the Whirlwind. And that 3-wheel spinner for Whirlwind is so unique to Whirlwind. But the Greatest Showman is a circus theme. And if those 3 rings were the 3-ring circus, you couldn't ask for a better match.
Yeah.
And again, her eyes got huge. So we said, okay, all right. Now, if we do Whirlwind, we're going to have to figure the coding out. And her promise to me, and she is going to follow through with this, and she's done some work. Her words were, "I will figure the coding out."
Wow.
I will handle that part. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And my stepson, her son, by trade, he's a coder. Mm-hmm. Now, we have not asked for his help, but I have a feeling that once we get to that point, we may be asking for some help.
Oh my God! So I can't. That's amazing. That not only did she push you to do this and support you with how much you excel at what you do, but then she said she would do the coding, which was the part that would get you over the hump to actually do it. That's amazing.
I learned a long time ago that You don't challenge my wife. A little side story. I used to scuba dive when I first met her. And I was like, you need to do this with me. She was I don't like having my face in the water. Well, I don't like roller coasters, but she loves roller coasters. And she's like, you need to do this with me. I got to the point where I said, okay, all right, I know how to shut her up. The day you learn how to scuba dive is the day I will ride roller coasters. That week, she signed up for scuba lessons. And she ended up getting licensed, and we ended up diving together.
That's
and
awesome.
I ended up riding roller coasters. Not a whole lot, but I did do
it. And you got a common theme pinball, so you
yes.
know. So you go the route of Greatest Showman. She's planning on doing coding. Maybe your stepson is gonna help, but you haven't asked him yet. And so you're looking at this whirlwind, which you just finished restoring for the second time. A whirlwind. What happens next?
So we decide whirlwind's it. So I said, okay, we need to find the perfect whirlwind.
Not the one you just restored.
No. That one I was not gonna scrub off artwork on a brand new, high-end restored whirlwind. So we need to find the perfect machine. You know, a machine that's a piece of junk is the ideal machine, but it's whirlwind. It's a popular machine, and that's really difficult to find. And so I ended up finding on Pinside. I ended up finding a machine that was a decent price. It wasn't a steal or anything, but it was a decent price. So I made a deal with the guy, gave him a $200 deposit. And the very next day, someone local contacted me and said, are you still looking for a whirlwind? I'm thinking, I just gave this guy money for a deposit. I'm thinking, I can't be that guy.
Right.
I've got a whirlwind. And this is a guy that used to be in the hobby heavy. Mm-hmm. And he ended up having family and kids, and he got out of the hobby. I've got a whirlwind, he says. It's been in my storage unit for 15 years.
Oh my God.
I was going to restore it. I sent the playfield off to be restored. It was a well-known name. I don't remember the person's name today.
No worries.
But I've got the playfield back. It's been clear-coated, sitting, been curing, hardening for 15 years. It's never had a ball on it. And he gives me a price that is, say, $1,500 or so less than this other machine.
Oh my God.
But the machine is in boxes. It hasn't been restored. I've restored 2 whirlwinds. I know how to put a whirlwind back together. I contact the guy and say, look, the first deal I found, I said, I found a local machine. I don't want to be that guy. I will follow through with my deal if you want me to. If you say it's okay, I want you to keep my deposit. He goes, I understand. And he kept the deposit, and I bought the one local.
Good for you.
And it really was the perfect machine. I was able to sell the playfield to go towards the cost because I didn't need that playfield. And so I start diving in. Well, first of all, we're not made of money, so I'm like, which machine in our lineup are we going to sell to fund this? And we both agreed it was Jurassic Park by Stern. So we sold our Jurassic Park to fund this entire project. Ha ha ha. It funded part of it. It's this doing a retheme is quite expensive. There's quite a bit to it, a lot more to it, like I said, than a restoration. With a restoration, you clean and repair the wiring harness and reuse it. With one of these, you buy all new wire and make your own wiring harness and connectors and everything. So I contact Alexi Cott, who did the art. So now I'm looking for an artist. I'm not an artist. I'm creative, and I've done lots of art directing with these private commissions I've run. And I do have good ideas, and I have bad ideas, but I work well with artists. So I'm looking for an artist. So I contacted Alexi Cott, who did this amazing poster for me. I said, hey, do you care if I use the artwork on this machine? As long as you're not going to mass produce it and sell it, that's fine. Are you interested in making more artwork for it? No.
Interesting.
Nope, I'm too busy. Can't do it. Fine. Okay. So I'm looking for art, and I contact some of the artists I've worked with. All of them say that doesn't sound like it's for me. So now I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting a little bit desperate. I go on Fiverr.com and I start poking around, and I find some people who say they're interested, and I find one who says she's very interested, and I send her the artwork that Alexi had made, and then it goes nowhere. Well, a buddy of mine who's been in the pinball mod business, somehow, I'm not sure exactly how it happened, he contacted me and said, hey, you ought to be using this other artist that I've used. His name's Jay French. I'm like, I've never heard of Jay French. I don't know, don't know Jay French. He goes, yeah, contact him and see if he's interested. I'm like, okay. But first, I went to his website. I wanted to check out his artwork because I've worked with enough artists. I know that not all artists have the right style that you're looking for. And I was kind of impressed. His artwork was great. And contacted him, and he goes, "This sounds like a lot of fun." So I start giving him concepts and ideas and things, and the first thing we work on is the cabinet artwork for the Greatest Showman, and he incorporates Alexi's artwork into the cabinet, and then also adds his own flair too. And I would never badmouth anyone who ever does a retheme. I know how much work it is. But I also know how difficult the artwork is, and having the right artist, and some, in my opinion, some people don't find the right artist. I feel like, and maybe I'm biased, but I feel like I found the right artist. I got very lucky, and Jay's been knocking it out of the ballpark. So I did the cabinet first because the cabinet artwork was ready first, and fixed the cabinet and painted it and put the decals on, and so Jay and I have been working on plastic artwork, translate artwork, drop target artwork, everything, speaker panel artwork, everything else that's needed. He recently finished all the artwork up for the Greatest Showman for things that need to be manufactured. Mm-hmm. Now, my wife has looked a little bit into the coding, and she has gotten far enough along that she's ready to start assigning like switch numbers and coil numbers. And I gave her a list of those numbers. Well, not ever have done this before. I realized that the random order I gave her was not necessarily the right order. So I told her to stop. I said, let me get everything wired up, and then I can tell you exactly where everything's wired to. So she's put that all on hold for now. I currently am working with a guy in Brazil who makes pinball plastics and translates and all that stuff. And he just emailed me yesterday and said everything's been manufactured. He's sent me pictures.
Oh my God!
And they're on their way. And I said, "Cool. How long does it take to get here from Brazil?" 2 to 4 weeks. I'm like, oh.
So Jeffrey, before we go any further, I want to roll back a little bit on a couple of things. So you got the Whirlwind from the Sky Local. You sell the playfield, and then and you liked aspects of the Whirlwind playfield for the Greatest Showman theme. So what did you do to? So first question is, what did you do to populate or create the playfield that you are using or are going to be using? What's your plan there?
So I have an original playfield that was trashed for Whirlwind from one of my previous restorations. So I decided to sand it off and to clear coat it myself, and that's acting as my test playfield. So I'm mounting everything to that called a whitewood. That's what. There's no artwork on it.
So you have a clear coated whitewood,
yes,
which is awesome. All right. So the next question is, you had mentioned that you're not using an existing wire harness. You're building your own wiring.
Right.
What is the help me and the listener understand why you're not able to use the Whirlwind wire harness and need to go create your own?
Well, everything is wired differently. The fast boards, and again, I'm still learning on this.
So you are all those would be my next question. You are using the fast boards.
We did buy the fast board system, and they seem to be similar to a stern setup where they are nodes and they communicate through a Cat 5.
Yep.
And so all the switches and coils of a harness from a Whirlwind, they all go to inside the back box. Well, most of the wires, in fact, all of the wires, the switches and coils go to node boards that are mounted under the playfield. So the wiring is totally different. And also FAST has recommendations on what colors to use for certain things. Now, one thing they recommend, which I understand this, makes it a little more difficult, but I understand it. Switches, they want you to use orange wire with the ground being purple. Mm-hmm. So every switch gets an orange wire, not orange with blue and orange with yellow and orange with red, all orange. Well, now you have to really track down how you've wired these and where they go, because they're all the same color wire.
Right.
But they recommend that so that if or when you have problems in the future, you can send a picture, and if you follow their color code, they know exactly how you've wired it and can easily find the error. Of course, I'm going to make no errors, right?
Because we never make mistakes.
No.
Okay, so that explains the wire harness point, and that explains the playfield. Awesome. All right. And so keep going with your story.
So the only thing I'm using from the original Whirlwind is I used the cabinet. I used some of the armor. As far as the playfield goes, it's basically all the top side and bottom side metal. The mechs, the metal ball guides, the wire form ramps, things that are specific to Whirlwind. If someone, and I still have all the parts for the Whirlwind, I'm looking for a buyer. I haven't found the right one yet, but I don't really want to split everything up, because if somebody really wanted to put together a Whirlwind, if they found a populated playfield, they would have everything they need, except they would need a cabinet.
Mm-hmm. Understood. So so that brings one half of the mechs. What about custom mechs for the Greatest Showman? What are you thinking there? What's the process you're using to get those?
So the only changes I've made to geometry or mechs is I have added an auto shooter, and I changed the System 11 ball trough to a WPC 6 ball trough, and I had to cut out the wood some. And again, this test playfield has been great for this, because I needed to make sure the geometry was going to work, and it seems like it's working great. So I have a 6 ball trough in a System 11 playfield and an auto shooter, which wasn't there. And the only other difference I can think of right now is the plastic that is near the shooter lane. I extended that to go over the shooter lane, because I'm going to be putting an elephant there. So,
as it should be.
Yes.
So so a couple of things. I've gone through the pictures you posted on Strictly Customs as well as Pinball ReBorn, and a couple of things absolutely stand out during your build. Number one, the level of like the pic and the pictures actually, I don't think they do you justice, but they at least start to broach doing you justice. The way that you do wiring, the way that you do polishing of parts, the way they like the way things present themselves, a pride and craftsmanship is, you know, your caliber of your pride and craftsmanship is absolutely there. And your wiring, your electrical layout, you look at it and you go, wow, that's neat. And not neat like the cool way, like, I mean, it is for those of us who enjoy that type of thing. But by neat, I mean it is elegantly laid out. You've given this thought, you've given it care. Every wire is in the right place. It's zip tied at the right place for this to be, you know, and I can only imagine what your restorations look like for yourself and for your customers. So I want to give you kudos on that. And I want, you know, the listeners should definitely check that out. I noticed also that you had, and actually the way that I first connected with you is you have a power strip that's inside the machine. Why don't you talk a little bit about like what else you're doing to the machine beyond what was there as part of Whirlwind or as part of the fast forwards that you're putting in?
So I did the power and the wire management for power first, as far as the cabinet goes, as far as populating the cabinet. And a lot of the things you plug in, like your monitor, I have lighted speakers. I have an amplifier for the speakers. There are other things too, but anyway, a lot of these things come with their own transformers. You know, those big boxes on the end of the cord. And I thought, okay, so I'm trying to think this through, and I'm like, I don't really want to hack up all these wires and then tap into, say, the 12-volt power supply multiple times to get these things power. I said, well, I would rather just plug it all in. And my cabinet bottom was so warped when it sat on my garage floor, it would rock. So it had to get a brand new bottom, and a buddy of mine who's a woodworker helped me put a brand new bottom in it. And when we did that, I did not cut out the hole for the power switch. And I decided I'm not going to do that because this is going to be home use. I really hope to take it to shows when it's done, but it's going to be home use. I can open it up and turn the power on the inside if I decide to. But I found a power strip on Amazon. I believe it's 6 plugins, and every plugin has its own switch for that particular plug. And then there's a main power switch that turns them all off and on. I thought, wow, this is a great solution. And not only is this a great solution, but if I need to turn off the 48-volt power supply by itself, this allows me to do that.
Exactly.
I don't have to unscrew anything or take any wires off or add any quick disconnects in between. And then I did some reading on the power strip, and it has a 15 amp breaker. I'm like, oh, cool! It has its own breaker. I'm like, wait a minute. These games recommend 8 amp, so I put in an inline 8 amp fuse before the power strip, so at least it's got the proper fuse for what the system needs. So then figuring out how to mount this thing was a bit of a challenge. It's got I'm not sure what it's called. It's got the 2 slots on the back of it that you put, and like those always are loose and flint, and they just. So from another project, I had a piece of angle aluminum that was, I think, 3 by 3 inch. It was big stuff. And I looked at it, I thought that might work. So I started doing some measurements and things. And what I did was I took 2-part epoxy and I glued the entire power strip to a piece of that angle aluminum. And then I drilled holes in the angle aluminum to mount it to the cabinet. And it is sturdier. It's not going anywhere. It's perfect. I'm really, really happy with that solution. It was not what Fast recommended. I've never seen anyone else do it. But I really hope the future proves me successful in that.
I years ago I built a arcade machine, a main machine, and I have a true CRT monitor in there. It was like one of the things I really wanted was I wanted a CRT, not a not an LCD or a flat panel. Or it is a true CRT, almost pure flat panel. And in order to make the whole thing work, I have a Bluetooth connection to it from the PC, and when the main power switch is kicked over, it sends a Bluetooth signal to the power cord, shuts down all of the external equipment. It's similar to what you have, although yours is individually controlled for power, and will give a 2-minute delay before it actually shuts power completely off, giving the CRT time to actually discharge the capacitors before it comes down. So I totally get it. Like, you don't always go with the standard way of doing it, but it does meet the need for the project. We talk about going under the playfield on this podcast, and we've been talking about that for good portion of the show. But I actually want to talk about going behind the back box for a second, because you did something. What really caught my eye and the attention of a number of other people is you did something really ingenious and simple when you look at it, but I don't think anybody's ever done it before. At least I'm not aware. So I don't mean to negate others' work. You have a monitor in your back box. Why don't you talk about what that monitor is for and how you made it so that you could access your board set and your controls that are behind that monitor within Greatest Showman?
I have to give all kudos to Jersey Jack Pinball for this. I knew I wanted to do whatever I could to make the Greatest Showman not look like a whirlwind. And to back up a little bit, I had Mirko make me a custom playfield, and I'm using color changing LEDs for all the control lights. So they were able to make me a playfield for Whirlwind with all clear inserts. Whirlwind normally has red, some are red and some are green and some are orange, and then also the compass inserts right there near below the spinners and above the flippers. Those compass inserts are really, really unique to Whirlwind, and I really didn't want them there, so he let them out, which worked out great.
That's awesome.
So, but I knew I wanted it to be different from a Whirlwind, so I wanted an LCD screen. And I was like, I don't know. First, I was thinking, how do you mount? I went on Amazon looking for different kind of mounts, and then I knew I didn't have much room between the back of the back box and where the glass goes, and I just happened to find one that pulls out and swivels, similar to what a Jersey Jack does. Mm-hmm. And so far, I think it's going to work well. I had to tighten everything down really tight so that it doesn't move, but so far, I think it's going to work well.
Yeah,
and then also it allows me to I have all the power supplies and boards and things are behind the monitor, because there's like a 2 or 3 inches back there. So
and it just, you need to get back there. You just swivel it out just like a TV mounted on the wall. Super simple solution to a hard problem. So at this point, Jeffrey, what do you see as next? You talked about going to shows. Any chance you'll be at Pinball Expo?
Yes, there's a chance. There's no chance this October. I even had Robert Burke contact me a few weeks ago saying, "You're going to bring that to Chicago, aren't you?" I'm like, "Absolutely, someday." But my wife and I have a goal to have the test play field flipping, and maybe being able to play the world's most boring pinball. Every target's worth 100 points, and when the ball drains, it goes to the next ball. Most boring, no rules, just that's all it does. No sound, no anything. That's our goal.
And when is that goal for?
By the end of the summer.
Okay. So is there any chance that it could be at Expo with the very basic gameplay that you were talking about?
Not this October, no.
Not this October. Okay.
No, it just, I still have wiring to do. It has a long way.
Totally fair. Well, look, I will be at Expo. You should, I definitely hope you're at Expo, regardless of whether the machine is there. We're going to be doing a lot for Expo for customs and homebrews. And we've already started posting on Strictly Custom Pinballs to get community support and get folks involved in the planning. And so even if you're not able to bring a Great Showman or aren't interested in bringing a Great Showman until it's more ready, having you there be part of the community, we'd love to have you there. So your wife's going to be doing coding, you're going to continue doing wiring. What do you have a target show that will be the first place that you want to bring it, or maybe it's Expo 2024 then?
It would probably be Expo 2024 would be our goal. But we're not coders, so we really don't know what we've gotten ourselves into.
Well, the nice thing about code is that once your mechanicals are done, you can keep making updates to it. You can keep refining it. You get folks to play it. You get them to try it. They tell you what they liked and they didn't like, and you can make updates to it. And the other nice thing about code is it only has to be as complex as you want it. Like if this is a showpiece for you, if the Greatest Showman is a showpiece and a gravity well of the craftsmanship and your work, it doesn't have to be the most, the most complicated code in the world, as long as you and your wife are having fun playing it, right?
It's funny too, because when we first started this, I was talking with my wife. I said, okay, we need to, and I'm starting to work with Jay French, the artist. I said, okay, we need to decide on some of the rules for the game. She's like, we don't need to do that. That's way down the line. What are you talking about? I'm like, he's working on the artwork. I said, if a light comes on for extra or light comes on for anything, and it needs to say something there. So we have to at least come up with some of the rules, because the playfield needs to indicate that. She goes, oh yeah, I kind of get what you're saying now.
I talked to a person who's well known, but I'm not going to say who they are because I didn't tell them that I would be bringing it up. In the custom community, and they do custom rethemes and restorations. And one of the things they said is that it's exactly what you just said. It's not just about putting the art onto the machine, but really integrating the art with the theme, with the mechanics, with the game rules. Like there's a whole cycle there, and they're all intertwined. And so you're spot on in what you said. We have another minute left, and as parting words, is there anything you would say to somebody who wants to go down this journey, who has never done a pinball restoration or done a custom? Any advice, words of wisdom, or encouragement you would give?
Just do your homework. Based on my own experience, I worked my way up to it. I went from cleaning a game to shopping a game to restoring a game to doing this, and that knowledge has really benefited me. I don't understand everything yet, but there's a lot I do understand, and having that background, it has been huge. So just be prepared that it's going to be more expensive and more time consuming than you imagine it's going to be.
And Jeffrey, based on your story, it's a journey as well.
I'm having fun. I'm really having fun.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for sharing your amazing story and your amazing journey, and tell your wife like she's awesome. And I hope to have both you and her on the show as you make further progress.
Sounds great. Thanks, Dan.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining the podcast. Thanks for listening. And I can't wait to see what you make.